But Mike Tyson in his prime, in those years from like, what was it, like 86, 87 to 89, 90, whatever those years were, where he was just storming the gates, I put that Mike Tyson up against anybody who ever lived. That guy was a special fighter.
If a knockout could be represented as a person, it would definitely be Mike Tyson. Even among the general public, his name evokes associations with the image of a knocked out guy lying face down in the middle of the ring, not to mention the fans. Iron Mike has become a phenomenon in boxing for all time, and his brutal knockout still sends shivers down the spines of crowds even after many years. So why don't we once again enjoy the creations of this unique master and watch all of his works.
I'm coming for you.
Is it frustrating to train like you did and then have this in 7 or 8 seconds?
For this fight, I only trained probably 2 weeks or 3 weeks for this fight. I had to bury my best friend, and I dedicated this fight. I wasn't going to fight. I dedicated this fight to him. I was going to rip his heart out. I'm the best ever. I'm the most brutal and vicious and most ruthless champion there's ever been. There's no one can stop me. Lynx is a conqueror. No, I'm Alexander. He's no Alexander. I'm the best ever. There's never been anybody as ruthless. I'm Sonny Liston. I'm Jack Dempsey. There's no one like me. I'm from Nairclaw. There's no one that can match me. My style is impetuous. My defense is impregnable. And I'm just ferocious. I want your heart. I want to eat his children. Praise be to Allah.
Friends, today's video will be dedicated to all of Mike Tyson's knockouts. Please don't forget to like, comment in 4 words, and also subscribe to never miss new videos. And we're getting started. Let's go! Hector Mercedes. Before Customato allowed his protege to become a professional boxer, Mike had already established himself as a promising amateur. In addition to the typical Golden Gloves, he won the Youth Olympic Games and made his professional debut at the age of just 18. Even as a young, still developing Tyson, he looked like a walking advertisement for the gym and a healthy lifestyle, and a certain Hector Mercedes with a record of 0-3 became the guide to the wonderful world of boxing for the young man. Although Mike appeared like a beast on the outside, stylistically he was still far from his ideal. Fast attacks, relentless pressure, and immense power were all great, but Tyson didn't yet possess the sense of distance and proper defense. However, at the level of Hector Mercedes, such skills were not required. As soon as Tyson landed a solid right hand, his opponent wobbled and retreated towards the ropes, where a barrage of punches awaited him. Barely surviving the onslaught, Mercedes moved to the side and walked right into a precise jab. Another brutal beating and a final body punch. Hector was clearly in bad shape, but the audience was dissatisfied with the stoppage. Trent Singleton. When a boxer reaches championship belts and lucrative fights, they start to carefully choose their opponents and fight dates. It's a different story at the beginning of their career. What? Fight against an unknown guy for a piece of meat and a bottle of water? Sure, why not? Mike Tyson lived by the same motto, and just a month after his first victory, he stepped into the ring with another unknown character, Trent Singleton. What this kid did? It turned out that Tyson hadn't yet shown his full potential at that time, and he unleashed his maximum here.
Singleton in the blue with a gold trim. We're in round 1. Well, we didn't get much of a chance to see Tyson.
With the ferocity of a tiger, he pounced on a terrified Trent and knocked him down in an exchange. When his opponent failed to rise, Tyson flew back at him and again felled him with his iron left hook.
From what little we've seen Mike Tyson in his pro career, down goes Singleton again, left up this.
I don't know what the referee was thinking, but he allowed the boxer to continue, and things ended very badly for Trent.
Machine so far. This isn't going to go too long. Trent Singleton in all sorts of trouble.
Tyson pounded him with another 5 blows to the head and stopped just a step away from pouncing on his fallen opponent.
The referee humanely has seen enough.
Don Halpin. 2 fights, 2 knockouts. What else does a budding boxer need? The blatantly mediocre opponents fueled Mike's self-confidence, and just a month later, he was ready to amaze again. This time, his opponent was the most experienced of all Iron Mike had faced before. Don Halpin had 28 fights in the ring, but he only managed to win 10 of them. Could such a seasoned veteran offer even a slight resistance to the motivated beast? For this bout, Mike had a different mindset. He didn't want to throw away everything he had in 10 seconds. Instead, he decided to play the long game. Demonstrating excellent work with his left hand, Tyson even played around a bit as a southpaw. Don also didn't stand still and attempted to take the initiative, but he looked clumsy and not very confident. It seemed like Halpin was still on his feet only because Tyson allowed him to be, and by the 4th round, Mike had had enough.
This is a much slower and much more measured Mike Tyson. And Albany to that good right hand, Halpin down.
A leaping left hook rocked on and a right cross sent him to the canvas. The veteran got up, showing his character, but he would have been better off staying down because what followed was a slaughter.
Early in the 4th, can Tyson finish this? I think so. That's enough.
Iron Mike charged into poor Don like a train and disabled him with a series of inhumane blows. Ricardo Spain. The young Tiger showcased himself from a different angle, but his image as a fearsome knockout artist didn't fade away. If anything, it grew even stronger. Again, just a meager month without fights, and this time a locally renowned disciple of Cus D'Amato steps into the ring to fight Ricardo Spain. There's nothing notable about the opponent's name except for one thing. He became Mike's first opponent with a non-negative record, albeit with just one fight under his belt. As soon as Michael Buffer exited the ring, the real onslaught began. First and foremost, Tyson lunged at Spain with a magnificent 1-2 combination and followed it up with a couple of short hooks with the force of a megaton. In a brief exchange, the future champion landed 2 right hands and Ricardo went crashing down like a rock.
Brief pro career hit like a steam hammer.
The young man with wide eyes looked at the referee and struggled to rise, leaning on the ropes. As soon as he got close to Mike again, Tyson blasted him with a lateral shot to the head.
Eyes on the giveaway. Oh, left, the legs have gone. This is all over. Yes.
Ricardo fell in a position as if he were about to be kicked, but merciful Mike spared him and the encounter was concluded.
Spain can't believe it. Tyson.
John Alderson. A month-long break had become the norm for Mike, who continued to rev up and grind everything in his path into dust like a combine harvester. His record had turned into a respectable 4-0, and to continue his winning streak, they found him an opponent in the face of John Alderson, who, by the way, came in with a 3-0 professional record. The most interesting aspect of this fight was the difference in appearance. While Tyson could make people tremble with just a glance, the guy in front of him resembled more of a lover of fatty ribs and beer in the evening. Knew this torture. Larry Sims. This time, Mr. Tyson surpassed himself, and instead of the usual month of rest, he took only 8 days off before heading to another tournament in New York, where he was slated to cross gloves with another unknown guy named Larry Sims, whose record stood at 3 wins and a whopping 16 losses. Unfortunately, this fight became the only one in Tyson's career that wasn't captured by video cameras. Only one photo remains, along with the expected outcome: a knockout in the 3rd round. Lorenzo Kennedy. This time the established norms were not violated, and a month later, Tyson set his sights on another hapless victim, Lorenzo Kennedy. The guy had a record of 3 wins with no losses, but a significant portion of the audience already 85. It was still 1985 and the talent was already in his 8th fight. Despite the insane pace of his performances, it didn't hinder his progression after each appearance in front of the public. But let's get back on track. Tyson found a new challenge for himself in the form of Michael Johnson, a journeyman with a mediocre record of 11-5, including 8 knockouts. Not much was expected from the guy, and the question was only at which minute of the fight he would meet the Angels. The hungry Tiger didn't allow the towering clone of Thomas Hearns to choose the distance and immediately started bombarding him up close. When Johnson attempted to retaliate, he missed with everything he had, and then he was immediately weakened by a devastating body stab.
I'm glad you pointed it out because down he goes, the left hook.
I'm sure the pain was severe, but the young man stood with a stone face and let Tyson know that he hadn't had enough yet. Not being greedy for punches, Mike promptly smashed his opponent's face with a straight right.
23-pound weight advantage, and he put it all there. The right to the head.
Just from that punch alone, Johnson fell face first onto the canvas, marking the end of the encounter. Donnie Long. Next in line for a prescription to cure insomnia stood a genuinely decent boxer, Donnie Long. With 15 wins in 18 fights, the guy had an impressive record, but that's not the most interesting part. Long attempted to trash talk Tyson even before it became mainstream.
I think that I can box as good as he can, and I keep him in the middle of the ring, and I can punch if not better than Tyson.
As you can imagine, after such statements, things usually don't end well, and Donnie's story was no exception. Iron Mike unleashed a powerful combination to the body and head within the first few seconds and had no intention of letting this hippie hold his ground in the center of the ring. Instead, the legend secured a brutal knockdown with his ferocious leaping hook.
Years of age. Long is 27. Oh, wow. Well, that was quick.
If Tyson drops you once, he will do it again, a rule that once again made itself known.
Well, he nearly sent Long out of the ring with that left hook. Tyson. Oh, Long is down. Second time.
Flying towards his just risen opponent, Mike, with the savagery of a hungry predator, unleashed a combination of uppercuts and hooks on Donnie. But even that seemed insufficient for Long as he rose for the second time, only to succumb to an explosive hook and be completely knocked out.
This is as bad as I've ever seen Donnie Long look, but give Tyson credit, that's it.
Robert Collet. And here we have the first small milestone in Mike's career, his 10th fight. While it takes some fighters a couple of years to reach that number of bouts, Tyson managed to achieve it in just 8 months of not so challenging work. It seemed like these guys willingly climbed into the coffin as soon as they stepped into the ring with Mike, and none of them have been able to escape such a fate so far. Maybe Bob Collet would have been able to at least slightly tame this maniac.
Left hook, good night.
Oh, how beautiful was the peekaboo style executed by Tyson. Not everyone knows that Customato actually invented this legendary technique not for his protege, but for an earlier protege. However, it was Mike who perfected it. Collet didn't even stand a chance against this well-trained machine that relentlessly unleashed left hooks. It seemed the higher powers themselves whispered to Mike that the knockout would come from the left, so he constantly utilized it, and at one moment connected with such a force that Bobby involuntarily performed a backflip from the impact.
Left hook, good night. What a great shot.
Good night, Mr. Collet. Sterling Benjamin. The tireless knockout machine continued to gain momentum, with new no-name opponents being thrown into the furnace. After just an 8-day break, Tyson returned to action at one of the tournaments in the USA. This time, he was matched up against Sterling Benjamin with a record of 5-6. The only thing that set this guy apart from all the other opponents of Iron Mike was that he hailed from the Caribbean nation of Trinidad and Tobago. You know, with each new fight, I become convinced that Tyson is a true lover of the left hook.
10 wins, 7 inside round 1. Did I say 7? Make that 8.
Giving his victim a little room to move. Mike carefully but swiftly closed the distance on Sterling, and when the opportunity presented itself, he rang Benjamin's bell with his hammer of a left hook. Benjamin's body resembled overcooked spaghetti beyond saving. Nevertheless, at the referee's discretion, the maniac, who apparently wanted more, the fight continued, and Tyson, in his own style, unleashed a series of devastating blows upon his opponent, culminating in a magnificent hook. Eddie Richardson. Mike stepped into the ring just 12 days later, but that wasn't the most important thing this time. Just a few days after his previous fight, his great mentor Cus D'Amato departed for another world. The remarkable mentor never got to see his protege become a champion, but he believed in him and knew that Mike was capable of it. Now, Iron Mike had to go through this world alone, but it didn't break him. Instead, it fueled him with new strength to spice things up against Eddie Richardson. Eddie Richardson looked like a reed that would be easily blown away by this powerful guy who had recently lost his father. And that's exactly what happened in the first few seconds when Mike's bone-crushing right hand sent Richardson sprawling to the canvas. Richardson didn't lose his focus, and as soon as he got up, continued to circle, while Mike charged up with every movement. A couple of times, the opponent managed to tie up Iron Mike in a clinch, but it only delayed the inevitable.
Predicts a great future. If they can find some fights, then...
A left hook and it was lights out. Mike claimed his 12th consecutive dominant victory. Conroy Nelson. It seemed like to combat loneliness and melancholy, the young warrior decided to lose himself in his fights. How else can we explain that less than 2 weeks later, he stepped into the ring again, making it his third bout in darn November 1985. On the other hand, with victories in less than 2 minutes, Tyson could fight every day as long as the commission allowed it. Now, facing Mike was the Jamaican Conroy Nelson with an unremarkable record of 15-7. Once again, Mike found himself facing a true baobab in terms of height, but did Conroy's considerable advantage help him? Naturally, it did not. The Jamaican simply wasn't prepared for Mike's aggressive and unrelenting style. It was downright uncomfortable for him to be in the ring with this monster, and Tyson understood that, so he beat him up as he pleased. Nelson made a huge mistake by resorting to a tight defense, which Mike easily broke through with body shots and rattled his opponent. As the second round came, Conroy attempted to come back and expose himself to attack, and a left projectile landed right on his chin.
Nelson, who was in deep trouble, is in deeper trouble as the left hook, which is fast becoming a Tyson trademark.
Once again, a hook delivered victory to Tyson. Sammy Schaff. The next bout is one of the first that comes to mind when we talk about Tyson facing giants. For the heavyweight division, Mike's height was always quite modest, even insufficient, so guys taller than him were the norm. But this time he encountered not just a big guy, but a truly gigantic man. On December the 6th, Iron Mike faced Sammy Schaff with a record of 13-6 and towering at a whopping 6'5". Unlike Nelson, who stood in front of the fearsome puncher and waited for the end, Sammy at least attempted to play the role of a classical boxer and keep Tyson at bay with his jab. The problem was that for every jab from Tyson, there was an answer: his devastating left hook. The explosive strike rattled Schaff's head, instantly eroding his confidence in his light jabs. On the other hand, Tyson had an abundance of confidence. He found opportunities to close the distance and, most importantly, to strike.
Tyson does not throw wild punches.
Big left hook. And there is Schaff down.
In one such moment, he encountered Schaff's lazy combination and sent his head spinning with a hook. Another victory in the very first round. Mark Young. The final bout of 1985 for the still young Mike. Just think, in less than a calendar year, this young lad stepped into the ring 15 times, and only one person managed to last more than 2 rounds with him. Tyson burned with the dream of becoming the youngest heavyweight champion in the world, and it seemed like he was on track to achieve his goal. Mark Young didn't have such ambitions. In fact, anyone facing Tyson could only dream of surviving. Storm charged up for punches with even more intensity than Mike. Astonished by this turn of events, Iron Mike didn't rush to seize control at any cost. Instead, he decided to wait and see what would unfold. In the meantime, Young attempted to launch attacks through Tyson's body as if hoping to surprise him. But Tyson couldn't care less about what his opponent was attempting. He played by his own rules and, at the right moment, met the audacious Young with a blazing right hook. A strike of inhuman power rendered Young unconscious and sent him crashing into the ropes. Lying face down on the canvas and showing no signs of life, Mark only confirmed Tyson's victory. Dave Jaco. Starting in 1985, the era of weak opponents for Mike Tyson came to an end once and for all. He embarked on a new stage of his career, battles with near top-level boxers and the road to a title fight. His journey began with Dave Jaco. Even before losing 1 trillion fights in a row, Jaco was considered a decent middleman with no championship aspirations, but a clear role as a gatekeeper. It's worth noting that Dave stood at a towering height of 6'6", making him the tallest opponent in Tyson's career. No matter the opponent's height, Tyson always had an answer: his right and left fists. While Dave clumsily jabbed at thin air and huddled in corners, Mike pursued the knockout and nothing could stop him. A couple of beautiful strikes failed to bring Jaco down, so the legend followed the well-trodden path and nearly killed him with a devastating hook. Jaco regained his senses and showed his fighting spirit, but Tyson wasn't scared. He knocked out his teeth with an uppercut. Even after such a meeting, the fight didn't end and Dave continued to stand on his own 2 feet. That's when the future champion unleashed a destructive hook from his hidden arsenal, finally forcing Jaco to fall. Mike Jamison. It took Tyson considerable effort to put Jaco to sleep, but he succeeded and was ready for new challenges. Just a few days later, an enticing offer came his way, and only 13 days after his previous fight, Mike was striding in the ring, anticipating a bloody brawl. The lucky individual standing between Tyson and the prize money was Mike Jamison, who was once a promising fighter on a good path, but had accumulated losses over time and now could hardly expect anything significant. Although if he were to defeat a young star of Tyson's caliber, he could ask for anything. The hulking alpha male with a hairy chest found his own approach to the prospect style. Jamison stuck to his opponent like gum, trying to tie him up and prevent himself from being knocked out. His performance was mediocre at best as he absorbed Tyson's signature Dynamite blows, but he held his ground and responded with active body stabs. The tactic bore fruit and Tyson couldn't completely dismantle his opponent. Yet in the 4th round, he unleashed a true storm on Jamison, finally securing a knockdown.
Go with a couple of lefts, now a right, a left. He's got him down. Mike Tyson sends Mike.
That success was just the beginning, and Mike entered the 5th round angrier than ever before.
What I think he should have been doing from the first go, he just took the right hand to the top of the head.
With ferocity, he pummeled Jamison against the ropes, ultimately forcing him to lie down. Jesse Ferguson. Methodically, Tyson moved towards his 20th fight, and his power and the fear that enveloped his opponents only grew stronger. On February 16th, Tyson was set to have his 18th professional bout, this time against an equally talented and young fighter, Jesse Ferguson. Although not riding the same hype train, had a decent record for a newcomer, standing at 14-1, and looked like someone who wouldn't fade into obscurity in the rankings. Listen, I don't understand guys who stepped in against Tyson and stood in a solid defense. Anyone who did that before received a barrage of body punches, and in this fight we saw the same thing. Almost the entire allotted time, the fighters were nose to nose, exchanging short punches. Not only Tyson, but Jesse also attempted to unleash his combinations, but Tyson's blows were twice as powerful. The bullfighting between the two lasted 4 rounds until Tyson's doubled right uppercut made Ferguson lie down. Once his opponent felt Tyson's full energy, he forgot how to breathe. Close range turned into a cowardly clinch, and at one moment, Jesse clung to his opponent so tightly that even the referee couldn't separate them, resulting in his disqualification. Later, this decision would be renamed a TKO. Steve Zalski. The victory was not the most straightforward and left a sour taste. Sure, Mike emerged victorious and he was leading on the scorecards, but that idiot Jesse spoiled all the enjoyment of the fight. The triumphant Tyson understood this and prepared to deliver something so spectacular in his next performance that everyone would forget about the previous bout. The target for Tyson to bounce back was Steve Zowski, a middle-aged heavyweight with 25 wins and 9 losses. Unlike Tyson's typical fights, this time it was he who initially got hit. Steve landed 2 clean right hands followed by a hook. Tyson absorbed the damage, processed it and retaliated with uppercuts. Just one look at those punches can knock someone out, yet Steve took them and held on, at least in the first 2 rounds. Gradually, the pressure from the hungry talent became unbearable for Zowski. He started falling apart piece by piece and heavier blows landed in the open gaps. In the 3rd segment, Tyson unleashed a flurry of punches, but Steve survived even that disaster. However, the decisive hook eventually reached him and sent him into a knockout.
Tyson's head with a 10 seconds to go, and there is a solid shot.
Reggie Gross. May 1986 became the saddest and mournful month in Mike's career as he won 2 fights by decision. No one expected such a shocking turn of events, but Iron Mike tearfully begged the promoters and fans for forgiveness and a chance to redeem himself in the bout on June the 13th against Reggie Gross. This guy was a legend of the streets of Baltimore. Besides his performances in boxing, where he did fairly well, Reggie was involved in a gang, took down a criminal authority, and overall killed people over deaths. Perhaps Gross was an epitome of a gangster figure in boxing history. Even if Reggie had his gun that night, it wouldn't have helped him stop this monster. Mike looked phenomenal and acted as fast as a man of his weight could. He was eager to rip Gross's head off but couldn't find the right moment for a knockout blow. Meanwhile, Reggie felt like a gangster not only in life but also in the ring, so he decided to engage in an exchange. An exchange with Mike himself, damn it, Tyson! And imagine, the guy landed some solid stabs on the future champion, but the ever-present left hook still put him on his knees. Gross was stunned by Tyson's power but decided to continue the fight, for which he was severely punished with another devastating hook. William Hosea. The gangsters from Baltimore never came to seek revenge on Mike for their man, as Gross soon ended up behind bars, where he still serves his sentence. However, it's unclear who got luckier, Tyson for not being confronted by gun-wielding guys, or the hooligans who didn't encounter Mike one-on-one. The Iron One was not interested in all this nonsense as he prepared for his next ring appearance just a week later. This time his opponent was William Hosea, with a record of 12 wins and 3 losses. The biceps of both guys were similar in size, and at first glance Hosea was a powerful guy, but behind those bulging muscles he lacked the necessary strength. But Mike had strength for 3 men. From the very first second, he forced his opponent to hide and avoid punches, but it didn't help, and Tyson left craters on Hosea's body with his meteoric blows. With 90 seconds, Hosea began to wobble from every other punch. The scent of a knockout filled the air, and the future champion loved that scent.
Hosea in trouble! And down.
He pressed close to his opponent and unleashed a barrage of right hooks, nearly beating him to death. Lorenzo Boyd. Even in the early stages of his career, when Mike fought against green newcomers or washed-up pilots, he didn't step into the ring as often as he did now. Remember the standard 1-month break? Well, now the Tiger was arranging fights every 2 weeks, and this case was no exception. In the middle of the hottest month of summer, a fired-up Tyson crossed gloves with some Lorenzo Boyd, whose record of 15-5 was read by fans as he'll go down in the first 3 rounds. Boyd revealed his bad habit right from the first round, ducking his head and charging at his opponent. Mike wasn't a bullfighter with a red cape, he was a different, even more powerful bull. He met every attempt by Lorenzo to dive in with an uppercut, signaling an imminent conclusion. Several mighty blows like a sledgehammer didn't let Boyd understand that leading with his head was dangerous, thus turning this mistake into a fatal one.
Right now he backs off from a sharp right uppercut to the body by Tyson. Again, a double right hand to the body and the chin. Down goes Lorenzo Boyd.
In the second round, Tyson caught him with a right hook and finished him with a spectacular uppercut.
Sam, show me what heavyweight throws punches back.
Marvis Frazier. If Mike rooted for Ali from his childhood and considered himself, in a way, a continuation of his legacy, then the eternal rival of the greatest, Joe Frazier, had the most obvious successor, his son. Marvis Frazier followed in his father's footsteps and began his professional career at the age of 20. Unlike the Smokin' Joe, the younger Frazier wasn't as devastating of a puncher, but as a boxer he was quite successful and had nearly 20 fights in 6 years, losing only one to Larry Holmes. His bout with Mike Tyson could easily determine the next title contender. Marvis faced a very difficult task, to find an approach to a guy whom nobody could figure out. Tyson, on the other hand, didn't change his familiar strategy at all and eagerly pounced on his opponent. The first few beastly punches missed the mark as Frazier Jr. worked the body and head. With such active defense, he had a chance to survive for several rounds, but he slipped up, allowing himself to be cornered. With no room left, he decided to explode and attack, receiving a response in the form of the most devastating blow of his life. A brilliant uppercut turned the talented Marvis into a sack of potatoes and knocked him down in the corner of the ring. Now that's a resounding victory. Jose Ribalta. The victory over an opponent of this caliber was crucial in Mike's career. Not only was Marvis considered a genuinely talented heavyweight, but he also fueled Tyson's hype train to maximum acceleration. With such a scalp, Tyson's team wanted to secure a title fight, perhaps even against Holmes, but their plans didn't materialize. Instead of the heavyweight king, they were given the very sturdy Cuban Jose Ribalta, who had recently lost to Marvis Frazier. Although El Nino didn't go through the legendary Cuban boxing school on his homeland, he was still regarded as one of the best Cubans in the professional ranks. Ribalta was a tall guy, but like the others, he couldn't capitalize on his natural advantage. When this solid mass of muscles and fury charges forward, no ring can save you. The Cuban had to cover up and hide his chin, while Mike rewarded him with hematomas. The blows to the body were brutal. It was impossible to watch this bombardment without grimacing in pain. But even Ribalta's liver didn't envy his head when a shocking blow from below landed in the second round.
Mike Tyson is invited. And there was an uppercut.
The uppercut provoked a knockdown, but finishing off the stubborn Cuban proved unsuccessful and the encounter prolonged. The pace slowed down by the midpoint, which was not surprising. But like a cannonball, Mike continued to charge towards his goal and maintained his strength.
There is no spring. And there's a smashing left hand.
Knockdown! In the 8th round, Ribalta absorbed a devastating left hook and came close to being knocked out. The 9th round was calmer, but then another fall. Mike's punch looked spectacular and, most importantly, effective. Jose simply didn't know where to go, so he allowed himself to be trapped and was ruthlessly pummeled. TKO in the 10th round. Alfonso Ratliff. El Nino provided the future champion with a very worthy resistance, but like the others, met a valiant end. After such a performance, he deserved the title shot, but once again he was taken for a ride and given not a champion, but a rookie in the heavyweight division. The thing is, Alfonso Ratliff spent a significant portion of his career in the cruiserweight division, where he even became a champion in one of the major organizations. As he got older, the American decided to move up to another weight class, but in my opinion, he was not prepared for a challenge like this. Ratliff clearly left his balls outside the ring. One would think that a former champion who had seen a lot would be more prepared, but no. Alfonso was so afraid of Mike that he barely attacked and instead scurried along the ropes in different directions, trying to avoid any hint of engagement. For his hesitancy, Tyson rewarded him with a hook and sent him to the canvas, but the knockdown was not counted. The Iron knew he was in control, so he didn't go full throttle in the second round. He walked around like a father figure, pressing his opponent. Within half a minute, he found his range and landed a devastating hook.
And there was a left hand, and Ratliff will sit it out.
The opponent struggled to gather his thoughts, and when he rose, he was rewarded for his toughness.
And that should be just about it. Davey Pearl looking very closely. And that's all. It's over.
The reward came in the form of ferocious combinations and a swift finish. Trevor Berbick. In his 28th professional bout, Mike Tyson had the honor of facing off against Trevor Berbick. Although the Canadian was not considered a father figure to Tyson, he had been competing for a long time and even witnessed Ali's final years, defeating the old champion by decision. Years had passed since that moment, and Berbick finally secured a shot at the WBC title against Pinklon Thomas, whom he defeated in a grueling 15-round battle. But now he had to defend his title against an even more dangerous and younger Tyson. An anomaly, a sensation, a genius, a talent. Call Mike whatever you want and you still won't fully describe him. He executed all the necessary tasks, not allowing Berbick to jab him, claiming the center of the ring and exploding with hooks every time Berbick hesitated. Trevor couldn't figure out how to approach the fight. Every time he took a step, this guy hit him in the head. Somewhere in the middle of the round, a brilliant idea came to Berbick's mind. He needed to clinch. The champion rushed for close quarters, but the young Tiger rewarded him there as well. A barrage of uppercuts, each packed with a ton of power, found their mark, and the Canadian barely made it through. In the second round, demolition has followed.
Tyson goes to work right away, and he's got Trevor in trouble, and he's down.
Iron Mike scored a knockdown, battered the champion in the clinch, and concluded his domination with a left hook. In less than 2 rounds, Mike Tyson became the youngest world champion in heavyweight division history. Pinklon Thomas. Tyson rewrote history at the age of 20, and many believed he was just at the beginning of his greatness. Don King took on the task of promoting the kid, and although he was a despicable character, he helped the Iron Mike secure unreal paydays. For the first time in his professional career, Mike took a 3-month break and returned in the spring of 1987 to face James Smith, whom he defeated by a decision, adding the WBA belt to his collection. After that, just a month later, he prepared for his second defense, this time against Pinklon Thomas, who had recently fought Berbick for the title. Initially, it seemed like the fight wouldn't go beyond the first round. Pinklon was not prepared for Tyson's peekaboo style and absorbed numerous soul-shaking blows. Everything seemed perfect for the champion, but then for some reason he faded. The challenger engaged in clinches where he did nothing himself and didn't allow anyone else to do anything either. And it seemed such a scenario suited the typical ferocious Tyson. He occasionally exploded, but he wasn't aggressive and didn't seek a finish, although Thomas didn't insist on his own offense. The fight could have continued in this manner for the full duration, but the Predator woke up at the midpoint. With the ferocity of a wildcat, Mike began tearing apart his opponent's face, and each strike became faster and faster. Pinklon stopped responding and at some point simply dropped his hands.
Serious trouble, and down he goes.
That meant a knockout. A trio of punches sent the challenger to sleep. Tyrell Biggs. On August the 1st, Tyson faced another champion. This time it was Tony Tucker, the IBF title holder. Tucker was an undefeated machine with 34 victories under his belt, but even with such an impressive record, he couldn't handle the peak form of Tyson. Tucker lost almost every round and surrendered his treasure to his opponent. With 3 titles now under Tyson's wing, he had one final challenge ahead of him. facing Tyrell Biggs, the Olympic gold medalist in the heavyweight division. Biggs, an exceptional amateur with an upgraded Larry Holmes-like style, posed a potential threat to Iron Mike. Biggs had a significant height advantage and kept his distance while dancing and hiding behind his jab. Any other heavyweight would have struggled immensely against him, but this was the damn Tyson we're talking about. Mike employed an interesting strategy. He didn't bob and weave too much to avoid getting tired. Instead, he absorbed Biggs' initial light blows, evaded the follow-ups, and exploded with hooks in close quarters. The sound of Tyson's punches resonated throughout the arena whenever he landed them. From the third round, the challenger couldn't handle this anymore, especially after his left eye started bleeding from a powerful hook. Biggs' salvation came in the form of clinches, buying him some time, but luck ran out in the 7th round.
That was a tremendous left hand.
Tyson unleashed a massive left hook, dropping the giant body of Tyrell. When Biggs regained his senses, he faced another onslaught of blows, and seconds before the bell, a devastating lateral hit ended it. Larry Holmes. Facing Larry Holmes was a true dream for Iron Mike. He had witnessed his childhood idol Muhammad Ali being ruthlessly beaten by Holmes, and Tyson burned with hatred for the Eastern assassin, desiring revenge sooner or later. At least, that's how the story was marketed during its promotion. Naturally, the most interested party in this narrative was Don King, who stood to gain maximum profits if the fight sold well. The story of the young champion seeking vengeance for his idol resonated so well with the public that tickets for the bout were sold out in a matter of hours, leaving the fighters with the task of delivering an exceptional fight. Old Man Larry was slightly slower than in his previous fights, with multiple injuries taking their toll. For Tyson, such a version of Holmes was a gift, but he still had to figure out how to approach the veteran. Even in this diminished state, Holmes kept his hands up, shifted and unleashed lightning-fast combinations, not allowing Tyson to land significant blows. The champion had the initiative, and the challenger had more punches thrown at him in the first 3 rounds, but soon enough, Tyson connected accurately for the first time.
First good right hand landed.
A right punch made the Eastern assassin falter, and the young champion immediately sensed it. The following 3 minutes turned into hell on earth for Holmes. Tyson exploded every 4 seconds, and his punches didn't stop for a moment.
That round after round. Oh, a big right hand!
They battered Holmes like an interrogation prisoner, and he fell, whether from a straight punch or a hook.
It was a big right hand. Larry's down again. Down he goes.
Through his mental fortitude, he endured knockdowns, and the round was almost over. But Mike didn't let him escape and finished him with a right punch.
He's gonna hang on, or they'll stop the fight. Down he goes. Larry's hurt. It's all over.
Tony Tubbs. Even before his victory over Holmes, Tyson was already a superstar, and after the successful promotion and brutal knockout, his fame skyrocketed and reached for the heavens. Every boy in the USA knew who Mike Tyson was and wanted to be like him. Iron Mike began living a lavish lifestyle, indulging himself in everything, yet he still frequently stepped into the ring to defend his titles. Just 2 months after Holmes, he arrived in Japan for a bout with Tony Tubbs, a decent guy who had only lost 1 fight in his career so far. Let's be honest, TNT wasn't the kind of guy who was supposed to impress the champion. Instead, he played the role of a punching bag and a showcase for Tyson's skills in front of the overseas fans. Tony was decent at mid-range and in close quarters, displaying physical strength. But Tyson was perfect in those same aspects. He made the heavyweight giant retreat like a little girl while relentlessly pursuing him from different angles. Tubbs managed to land some decent-looking blows a few times, but as soon as the champion shifted into the second gear, the challenger was broken and devoured.
I couldn't tell whether another punch hurt.
Tubbs is hurt. Tubbs is hurt badly. It was a left hook.
Iron Mike hit him with a hook so powerful that no block could save Tubbs, who danced something out of hip-hop before falling and never rising again. Michael Spinks. In just a few minutes, the champion raked in a huge sum of money and further solidified his name in Japan. but even greater achievements lay ahead. According to modest estimates, Tyson earned $5 million for his fight with Tubbs, but for his next opponent, former undisputed cruiserweight champion Michael Spinks, he was offered $22 million. 22 million guaranteed payouts for a specific opponent. With such a mountain of cash at stake, one could even fight the devil himself. However, all Iron Mike had to face was the undefeated Mike Spinks, who had defeated Larry Holmes twice in the past. Spinks was a technician par excellence, but there was a catch. To beat Tyson, one needed to be taller, faster, and equally strong. The Jinx, as it turned out, possessed none of those qualities, and his decision to face Tyson proved to be a mistake.
But he's taking them. The uppercut, body shot, down goes.
Tyson caught up to him within seconds and forced him to kneel with a devastating body uppercut. A knockdown in the very first round. The fans screamed with delight. Spinks recovered from the heavy blow, caught his breath, and rushed back into the fight with a new plan. Or at least I like to believe there was a plan.
Here comes Mike Spinks in. He leads to the right hand. Down he goes. I don't think you get up from this.
The problem was that Tyson had a better plan. To blow the freaking head off. And he did just that. A right punch laid the undefeated boxer flat on his back, instantly making Tyson the wealthiest man in sports. Frank Bruno. At the age of 22, a young man from a troubled family achieved everything one could desire in life. He had money, status, women, and no one in professional boxing could stop him. All these accomplishments and self-assurance blinded Mike, and in a burst of pride, he decided to sever all ties with his old trainers, thinking he could manage without them. His ego reached even greater heights when he defeated Spinks with his new team. He considered himself the king of the world and believed that his downfall was impossible. Frank Bruno, one of the fiercest punchers of the 80s and 90s, attempted to dethrone the Iron Mike. The first 3 minutes certainly deserved the Round of the Year award. Two muscular men engaged in a spectacular exchange, standing directly in front of each other.
First time in the fight.
First, Frank landed a blow that grazed the canvas, and then the British boxer retaliated and delivered a stunning blow to Tyson for the first time in his career. Mike barely stayed on his feet, and after that, the dynamic encounter turned into a hugging session between two exhausted giants. Bruno clearly tired more, but he tied up his opponent and didn't allow him to fully unleash. However, Tyson didn't take too many risks either. The rare explosive clinches lasted until the 5th round, when the champion ignited his heart and character and pounded the contender.
Tyson knows he's got him in big trouble. If he doesn't answer it, Richard Steele has moved in and has stopped the fight.
Carl Williams. Serious problems were evident in the fight with Bruno, but Tyson seemed to dismiss them and made no changes in his preparation and lifestyle. On the other hand, if any of us were in Tyson's shoes, I bet our behavior would be similar. The most important thing was that the champion won and brought income to himself and his surroundings, so everyone was satisfied. 4 months after the victory over Bruno, the Iron One faced Carl Williams, the USBA champion. After watching so many Tyson fights, I can consider myself somewhat an expert, and I declare that this fight is the most typical of what Tyson did in the ring. A couple of quick punches, movement, everything was perfect. Even if the challenger landed a hit, it didn't matter to Tyson because he was preparing for a knockout. In the middle of the round, a beautiful shift to the side, bam! That's it. The champion wins with a precise left hook. Carl, of course, disagreed with the stoppage, but something tells me that the referee made the right call. Henry Tillman. On February 11, 1990, the fairy tale came to an end. The undisputed heavyweight champion of the world, Mike Tyson, was knocked out by a barely surviving Buster Douglas in one of the arenas in Japan. The sensational news spread worldwide, and the other heavyweights eagerly rubbed their hands together as the belts were now in possession of the champion until his first defense. The Iron Mike himself was going through a divorce process and in general was not focused on boxing, but the result turned out to be the most shocking upset in history. After recovering from the knockout, Mike, now without belts, intended to return to the path of victory, starting with Henry Tillman. Tillman hadn't made a name for himself in top form. Alex Stewart. The champion quickly returned to the path of victory, but his mental state was troubled. Tyson couldn't find solace in anything and continued to spend dollars on an industrial scale while Don searched for new opponents for him. Only 6 months later, the boxing star entered his 40th fight in his career against British fighter Alex Stewart, who suffered his first career loss to Evander Holyfield the previous year.
If he stops throwing, he'll be dead. Tyson lands a right and another.
A brief note about the level of competition in this fight: Stewart went down after just 5 seconds from the start. Tyson hadn't knocked people out for a long time, and his fists were itching, so Stewart's head came in handy. That night, Tyson put everything into his punches like never before, even falling when he missed. Unfortunately for his opponent, the former champion rarely missed, and his iron hooks predominantly landed on Stewart's chin.
That was a flush right hand.
The nightmare didn't last a round, and Alex went down twice more during that time.
Or else it's just a question of a few seconds.
That'll do it.
The final left hook was so devastating that the Brit preferred to lose but not rise again. Donovan Ruddock. Donovan Razor Ruddock was a highly underrated guy. Yes, he didn't capture titles in the major versions, but at his peak, he only lost to the best heavyweights of his generation and was a pride of Canada in professional boxing. Prior to his encounter with Mike in 1981, Donovan had won 16 consecutive fights and was on the verge of a title shot. If he had defeated a superstar of Mike's caliber back then, the hype would have been unstoppable, but luck wasn't on Razor's side. If you're familiar with Ruddock's style, you know that he's a boxer who primarily used his left hand. That's why it's doubly comical that it was Mike's left hand that scored 2 knockdowns in this fight. For the first time, Donovan found himself down after a hard body stab that seemed to have knocked him off his feet. The Canadian protested, but arguing with the referee was futile. The fight continued, and in the third round, Razor took a heavy blow. Tyson's hook sliced through his jaw and sent him crashing to the canvas. Regaining some vigor, Ruddock resorted to trading punches and attempting to catch Mike with a left uppercut. But all these efforts were in vain, and in the 7th round, a monstrous combination from Tyson forced the referee to intervene and stop the contest. It wasn't the most unequivocal decision, but winners aren't judged. Peter McNeely. Perhaps after the victory over Ruddock, Mike was expected to have title fights again soon, but we never got to see that. The sports superstar got himself involved in that infamous unpleasant incident that you've heard about a million times. Due to King's greed and the stupidity of Tyson's lawyers, Mike ended up behind bars for 4 years and returned to boxing as a different person. He had significantly slimmed down, and his eyes no longer reflected that primal hunger and thirst for knockouts, but rather resentment and weariness. A young Peter McNeely with a record of 36-1 was asked to welcome the legend back to the ring. Peter decided to take on the former prisoner head-on, but miscalculated a little and caught an overhand. The punch was akin to a car crashing into a person, but Peter bounced back as if nothing had happened and impulsively charged at Tyson again.
Mills lanes and stopped that nonsense because it was starting to butt heads. Oh! Tyson with a left hook, a right uppercut, down goes McNeely again!
This madman wanted to overwhelm the genius of pressure, but he paid the price and received several punishing blows in lightning-fast exchanges. Seeing what was happening to their fighter, McNeely's cornerman jumped into the ring and the referee logically asked him to leave. Upon receiving refusal, he made the only decision he could and simply disqualified McNeely along with his entire team. To be fair, Mike would have defeated Peter within a couple of minutes even without that, but at least it saved the guy from unnecessary brain swelling. Buster Mathis. It's okay if you're not familiar with who Buster Mathis is. The guy never lived up to the expectations placed upon him, although in the mid-90s he was almost hailed as the new Tyson, and here's why. Mathis was a young prospect with a record of 20-0 who also went through the Customado school. Of course, it wasn't Cassius Clay himself who revealed all the secrets and nuances to him, but his father, who was also a successful boxer and fought many legends of the 70s. Considering these connections, a fight between Mike and this guy promised to be interesting. Before the fight, Mathis promised to become the biggest problem in Tyson's career, and in the beginning, he even made one wonder, could this be more than just talk? The thing is, the young lad skillfully avoided Tyson's punches, making him miss with his best punches 3 and sometimes even 5 times. Buster fought in the style of peekaboo, just like peak Tyson. For a full 2 rounds, the lad made the most feared man on the earth a laughingstock, but Tyson grew tired of it and made the lad make a mistake. During one of the numerous exchanges, Mike swiftly moved aside and his uppercut met the face of his opponent. The punch was akin to a meteorite that wiped out dinosaurs, so even tough guy Buster couldn't get up anymore. Frank Bruno too. It's often believed that athletes don't return the same after long layoffs, but Mike was a unique character. He ended up in prison when he was only 24, so upon his return he was still damn young and full of strength, which was also evident from his 2 terrifying knockouts against formidable opponents. Promoters saw championship potential in Tyson once again, so they decided to arrange a series of rematches and gave Iron Mike the opportunity to face his old acquaintance, the knockout artist Frank Bruno, who had become the WBC champion in the meantime. The aging Brit couldn't keep up with the opponent flickering in front of him like a flash. Tyson utilized his speed to the fullest and delivered a stunning straight right to Frank, who in turn resorted to clinching. Only in that moment, Bruno's head was safe, so he was very reluctant to let go of Mike, even at the referee's insistence. As soon as things started heating up, Bruno would grab Tyson and wait, but clinching was not a panacea. In the 3rd round, the Brit didn't manage to clinch, and that's when it began.
What Bruno expected. He said he's not looking for the Tyson of one Brazilian Mathis. Here's a combination uppercut by Tyson. Tyson laying it on, pouring it on. Down goes Bruno into the ropes.
Mike unleashed his onslaught and simply demolished his opponent from all angles, making him hang lifelessly on the ropes. Bruce Seldon. After reclaiming one of his titles, Mike immediately set out to pursue the second. The legend lunged at his opponent with such speed that it seemed he might fly out of the ring any moment. Seldon was also shocked by what was happening, so he tried to create maximum distance between himself and Mike and shifted into reverse gear, but he couldn't escape.
Look how he stands straight up there. Now that's not... Oh, down goes Bruce Seldon.
Iron Mike, in his trademark state of frenzy, caught up with a piece of paper.
Nice long rest there, but he has felt... Back comes Sheldon and Tyson.
Francois Botha. The fight between the 2 top heavyweights wasn't organized immediately, as Mike was first allowed to face Holyfield. You know what happened in those fights: defeat and the biggest sports scandal in the world. Tyson was stripped of his license due to his actions, and it took him over a year to have it reinstated. His second comeback took place in January 1999 against Francois Botha, who had a professional record of 39 wins and 1 loss. If Mike returned somewhat resembling his former self after his time away, the boxer the world saw in the fight against Botha was unfamiliar to us. Sluggish, lacking proper defensive style, and with an abundance of awkward punches, this version of Tyson wasn't a parody but rather a shadow of his former self. The South African quickly realized that he wasn't facing a destructive beast and began dropping his guard, effectively countering his opponent. Ironically, it worked. Additionally, the iron, or rather the tin Mike, would twist both his arms in the clinch out of frustration, for which he paid with a point deduction. By the 5th round, Mike had given everything he had, but unexpectedly, he landed an incredibly powerful right cross, and a confident Botha who believed in his victory crumbled into a knockout.
That is the mark of a shot fighter when you can't get off punches.
Orlin Norris. The comeback of the former champion left more disappointments than pleasant impressions. However, the promoters continued to squeeze money out of Mike and search for new opponents for him. Next in line to try and stop the rusty Tyson was Orlin Norris, a multiple-time champion in the heavyweight division according to various secondary versions, but who never managed to reach the major titles despite having over 50 professional fights in his career. The fight mostly took place at a mid-range distance, and it was expected that Mike would initiate the pressure. Norris managed to avoid some heavy blows, but it seemed his speed wasn't enough to keep up with Tyson. Overall, Norris attempted to work through clinching, but it let him down. When the bell rang to signal the end of the round, the fighters were in close range and Iron Mike landed a devastating short hook that resulted in a knockout. Orlin got up, but the incident didn't sit well with the referee, who called for a doctor, subsequently confirming that one of the fighters couldn't continue. Moreover, due to traces of marijuana found in Mike's tests, the fight was deemed inconclusive. Julius Francis. After the extremely strange bout with Orlin Norris, anything could be expected from Mike's next fight. Fans knew they were in for something peculiar, and it was clearly not going to be a title showdown with Lewis. Their fears were confirmed, and soon Tyson faced off against a certain Julius Francis, whose record consisted of 21 wins and 7 losses. On paper, he held the title of British champion, but that didn't carry much weight. Francis was a stocky and compact fighter who Mike, as in all his recent fights, planned to overwhelm with his old-fashioned power. Strangely enough, it worked more than well. From the punches of the former champion, Julius bounced around the ring like a ping-pong ball. In the first 2 minutes, Tyson scored a couple of knockdowns. But don't be fooled, it wasn't that Mike was good, it was just that the Briton was very poor. The second round became the last. Iron Mike effortlessly sent his opponent to the canvas 3 times. The entire spectacle resembled beating an infant, but a win is a win. Lou Savarese. After tossing poor Francis out of the ring, Tyson went on a break that lasted almost 6 months. Upon his return, he faced a solid heavyweight contender, Lou Savarese. Of course, for most of you, this fight is better remembered for the post-fight interview that became a meme sensation. However, the actual bout had its moments worth watching as well.
Every punch that Tyson threw was like a kick from a horse, and the first one
The first knockdown was counted just 10 seconds into the fight. Tyson swiftly leaped in with a left hook, and Savarese ate an excessively dangerous blow. Rising back to his feet and smiling at the referee like a mentally challenged person, Savarese returned to the fight where Mike, as if possessed, unleashed a flurry of wild speed upon him. Devastating combinations to the body and head made the referee's heart shrink in horror, prompting him to intervene. However, it wasn't that simple. Iron Mike was in a state of fury, not in control of his actions, and the referee also became a target. Nevertheless, he got back up and bravely performed his duties. Despite the excessive aggression and the referee incident, Tyson was awarded a knockout victory, after which he delivered his legendary phrases. Brian Nielsen. Having overcome the challenge from Savarese, Mike soon faced one of the dirtiest boxers in history, Andrew Golota, who, after taking a few brutal punches from Tyson, exited the ring with his tail between his legs. The fight was declared inconclusive, which greatly angered Iron Mike. It was only a year later that he stepped into the ring again, this time against Brian Nielsen, a Danish average boxer with a record of 62-1. The fight resembled a brawl between two regulars at a local bar with beer bellies. However, the extra 10 to 15 kilograms didn't hinder Tyson from launching fierce attacks and pummeling Nielsen in front of his home crowd. Bryan took punishment in every position, especially in the clinch, which occurred frequently. In the third round, a series of swift hooks caused the Dane to plop down on his back in a Homer Simpson-esque style.
Oh, quick combination of the head, and down goes Nielsen.
Bryan got back up, but he started taking even more punishment, particularly to the body. After the sixth round, Nielsen was in such bad shape that a couple more minutes with this monster could have been deadly, prompting Nielsen's corner to stop the fight. Clifford Etienne. And here we come to the epilogue, the final knockout in the short yet eventful and unique career of the great Mike Tyson. Shortly after his trip to Denmark, Iron Mike finally got his dream fight with Lewis, whom he predictably lost to, although both fighters received the biggest purses in boxing at that time, $35 million each. After the defeat, Tyson remained in the sport even though he had already proven everything. 6 months later, he faced the young Clifford Etienne, who had recently been recognized as the most exciting boxer of the year. Tyson loaded up on his punches with all his might, while Clifford lived up to his reputation as an entertaining fighter and had no intention of going the distance. Instead, he chose to stay in close range and engage, maybe even take down Tyson, but it didn't work out. With wildness in his eyes and uranium-powered shots in his hands, Tyson unleashed a series of blows, one of which found its target. Etienne crashed down onto his bent leg and remained lying there, not even attempting to get up before the count. As soon as the knockout was counted, the veteran Tyson kindly helped the young man to his feet. Before you are all of Mike Tyson's knockouts. Isn't it a grand spectacle? This guy was born to dominate and destroy. The very gods themselves resided in his fists, and at his peak, he could have torn apart any of the best heavyweights of the current generation within a round without a doubt. I'm not urging you to be fervent Tyson fans, but after witnessing all these insane brawls and the bodies knocked out by Mike, how could you not fall in love with this guy?